Okay, yeah. What's good, everybody? Hope everyone is well. I have my face cam off for this. I hopefully y'all like the background. I know it's very basic. I didn't go for anything super fancy. Um, but hello and welcome to my breakdown of what I drafted, why I drafted what I drafted, and yeah. Hopefully you all will like this. Let me pull this up. Just so I have draft order and I can talk about what I drafted for like possibly other teams' coaches and things like that. So, I guess let's get started. So, my first pick of the draft, I got I think it was 7th in the upper Ubers pick. I kind of got last a lot. It benefited some places not so much. Um, but I was able to get something very specifically to counter. Well, it's a hard hitter, but it was mainly to counter one of the biggest pain in the asses of last season, which you guys didn't get to see. But Nissa won last season, something that should not have happened. And needless to say, I went and yeeted Primal. Wrong one. Primal Kyogre here. I did this to try and counter her Groudon because she has two options. She can rather run an extremely slow Groudon, or in which case it's going to be more of a setup mon and it can't do much offense wise, or my Kyogre's here. So, you know, playing that little dance because my Kyogre gets its Storm off, her Groudon, or whatever comes in, she switches out and comes in against it. It's kind of fucked by a Water Spout. This thing hits like a truck. It doesn't take up my Mega slot, which is nice. Yeah, it's just an overall very powerful mon. Very nice. Water type as well. Hits hard. Wish it had reliable recovery. That's its biggest downside. But just like with Nissa, I can run rest if I have to. It gets a couple of interesting things. Water Spout being one of its best things. Surf if you don't want to have to worry about your HP. Gets Ice Beam, gets Signal Beam. Gets Thunder. It's just not necessarily versatile, just a strong hard hitter, which is something I was kind of looking for this early. Now I'm gonna shrink this down, y'all. Sorry, y'all. I want to try and have my whole team over to the side, so we're doing a bit of live editing. Next, after the Kyogre, I snagged Chimpow. Now I want to preface this with saying if Chimpow got taken, my plan was to grab Clodsire with my low drop down pick. But Galen did that way before I had a chance. He was like 32 picks ahead of me or so. So he was able to do that. But Chimpow wasn't taken. So I managed to snag a nice, very fast, hard hitting physical sweeper. Ice types hit really well because I'm especially paired with Dark. Because in my personal opinion and experience, some of the best mons in the game are Flying Dragon or Psychic. This thing hits every single one of them. It just ticks off every box along the way. It might not be the best pick. Apparently, Marshadow is like the best low tier Ubers pick according to Pandora. Nissa snagged that number 1 pick. But it wasn't. I don't think it's going to be as amazing as everyone thinks. But that's just my personal looking at it. It may suit my team. We will find out. But that's why I took Chimpow. I'll try and center it. Okay. With that out the way, those were my two Ubers picks, my top and low tier Ubers. My reasonings for them were very basic, just hard hitting. Because last season I had Arceus because I got like number one pick or something like that. Hey, Arceus is great, but there's something I realized about it. It's best ran bulky. Because if you run a non-bulky Arceus, a fast fighting type, something faster than it, which there's still quite a few mons above that 120 speed tier, or a Scarfed mon, will just come in and wreck shit on that thing. So you're rather running plate to counteract a fast hitting fighting type, in which case your items kind of somewhat null and void, or you run like bulky Arceus, in which case it's not the hardest thing to take down. It's gonna be a pain, but it's not the hardest thing. So, up next though, speaking of fast fighting types to body Arceus, I snagged the Dog Zamazenta non-crowned. So, two things. Number one, it still gets its defense boost, even if it's not in crown form. That's something I learned last season. Pandora had this thing. I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, it is faster than Arceus, and it should be able to go head to head with it. I'm pretty sure close combat at least comes close to killing. If I run this thing banded, it probably will kill. The defense is nice because it means only special Arceus is going to be able to hit me super hard. This is just a great Arceus counter and another great sweeper along with Chimpao. I can kind of use either or pair them together as reverse sweepers. The only downside of this is someone, and if I'm not mistaken, it's B-Rad, snagged a nice counter to my team early on that I didn't prepare for till my next pick in Necrozma Dusk. Steel Psychic is a somewhat busted typing, especially on something with easy, reliable recovery and things like D-Dance. So, hitting that thing hard is going to be an issue on my side. Luckily, I do have Chimpao, who still hits it super effective. And I do still have my next pick. We'll get there now. My next pick was Garchomp for literally that one thing. Because, being 100% honest, it's a problem. And Garchomp's my problem solver. For those who weren't there during the stream, I did have to delete that VOD. My Terra type was ground, because you have to draft, or not Terra type, Z crystals. We drafted 2 Z crystals each. We went in ladder format. I got first pick for Z crystals. So I immediately chose ground solely to counter B-Rad's Necrozma, and ground just seems to hit a lot of coaches hard. There are some coaches that have some like niche weaknesses. I've noticed a lot of them have like 5 or more weaknesses to one particular type. I know B-Rad was like ground or rock, if I'm not mistaken. Nissa had bug. Amanda was freeze dry. I kind of went through the list, but my team actually only has 4 of any one type. Granted, ice hits 2 of my mons 4 times super effective, one of them being the Scarjump. But this kind of rounded out what I needed. It gives me water's neutral. So, like, water is doing nothing to my team. For those who don't, like, it just doesn't. You can't, it's hard to run a water type into me. This gives me a nice electric immunity. Fairy at this point became a bit of an issue that I'd solve later. Because Fairy hits these top 3. Or 3 of these 4. But I just needed a strong ground type. I started to choose Gliscor, but I didn't need any more, like, so it's more bulky than it is offensive. I needed something to hit the thing hard. I was afraid Gliscor would die too easy. Or not hit as hard and still lose. So, long story short, Garchomp was the best pick for me personally. But overall, the Garchomp was not a bad pick on my end. My next pick. So at this point in the draft, people were drafting or had a decent amount of setup mons. I know Sammy had Zacian. Galen has Iron Hands with belly drum or Swords Dance. That he picked up before me, if I'm not mistaken. B-Red had Kangaskhan, which is an issue, and the Necrozma, as I'd already stated. Pandora has Landorus and Mega Lucario at this point. And no, big setup issues, along with Gouging Fire with D-Dance. Christian at this point is like one of the few that doesn't have like a hard setup option to kind of screw me. And then you got like Swords Dance, Great Tusk, and things like that on Amanda's team. And yeah, most of the mons people have are setup mons. So I needed an unaware mon. There's just was no two ways about it. I need something with unaware. So I managed to scoop up Dondozo. A great, bulky, unaware mon. Not the best. Clodsire is probably the best. Fuck you, Galen, for sniping it, but Dondozo was a great backup. It did give me a second water type, which is slightly scary, but with my immunity with Garchomp, I wasn't super terrified. And I wanted to make sure I got one unaware user. That was the main goal. This thing kind of shuts down most of the offensive mons that set up minus Iron Hands. My goal with that thing is just to outspeed and hopefully kill it. Fingers crossed. But other than that, this thing is a decent wall. The Groudon, if it sets up, isn't going to be able to do a lot to me. Granted, I might not be able to do a lot back, but I'm pretty sure I get Earthquake or Ice Beam, depending how I want to run this thing. Could also run a Curse set. Has a little bit of versatility. But yeah, mainly got this because I needed an unaware Bulkymon for things like Red Card, if I needed to run it. There we go. Up next, this is the point of the draft where we hit Yu. Now, I know Sammy used her drop-down pick to select from Yu with Galarian Moltres. I don't think anyone else did. I think she's the only one that drafted down into Yu. But, with that being said, I still have a fairy weakness on 30 mons. So I needed something to balance. So I needed a wall, I needed to resist fairy, and preferably to have some type of way for recovery. The only thing I really saw that kind of fit what I wanted in a wall was Celestial. Now, I know this thing is hit or miss. Its weakness to electric's kind of ass for my team at this point. But it gives me a ground immunity and a poison immunity, which is just nice immunities to have. It walls fairy types pretty hard. I mean, I know some fairy type skill things like Mystic Fire and shit, but can't hit this thing super hard. Has decent recovery and Leech Seed, and in fact there are leftovers on it. It can be offensive though. It has nice offensive stats. The only thing is it's somewhat slow. So if I need to run this as an offensive, like Heavy Slam or Flash Cannon or Air Slash or any of these various moves, this thing works. And just having that extra bulk and Beast Boost is great. Because Beast Boost into boosting a defense stat is... It's going to be hard to kill this thing. There are some unaware mons that got taken. I think, or there is one unaware mon that scares me, and that's Skeledirge. But with me having Garchomp, Dondozo, and Primal Kyogre, I don't see that being an issue. Best way to phrase it. Electric types are getting scarier the more weaknesses to it I get. I'm going to shrink you down just a bit more. But overall, I have faith in my Garchomp to deal with those, especially with me having that. My other Z Crystal we will talk about after this next one. I snagged Clefable. This is my Terra Captain. I chose Clefable for two reasons. One, it has self-reliable recovery with Soft Boil. Number two, it gets reliable recovery for other mons in the form of Wish. A Wish user was something I really wanted out of this, because a lot of my bulky mons up till this point, if you've noticed, doesn't have super reliable recovery. So having something like this that is also an unaware mon, hits dragon types, which I don't really need it to. Fighting types, though, are something I kind of need for. But hitting just so many different things and being bulky, I can run Life Orb Magic Guard. I can run Unaware Cosmic Power if I want to be an ass. It's just super versatile, and having it be my Terra Captain makes it hard to hit super effectively, because you never know what type I'm going to change into. So, sure, I could Terra Dragon, or probably better, I can things like Terra Grass, or, something to resist steel, anything like that. I could Terra into a steel type, and then I can't really be touched by anything that's normally super effective. It's just great. And having it be a bulky Terra Captain will be interesting, because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people went with an offensive Terra Captain. I went bulky. So, we'll see how that plays. My goal with all of this is to have fun. Because last time I try-harded just a bit, I beat B-Rad. I helped plenty of others beat Pandora. I got what I wanted out of the last league. I'm here for fun now. Now, on to my next pick. This was my drop down pick. I grabbed Lycanroc. Now, I grabbed the Dust form because this is the best Lycanroc form. Tough Claws plus a Cell Rock is fantastic. It also gets coverage in things like Drill Run. It gets fighting type coverage with Brick Break and things like that. It gets counter if I need it. Its moveset isn't super diverse, but what it does do, it does well. And I snagged its Z Crystal, because that gets rid of terrains. So I don't have to worry about something like Nissa's Tapu Koko or whoever has Tapu Lele. It gives me options to get rid of their stuff. And with the possibility of people running teams like Iron Moth and Nissa having Koko with it to set up its terrain, having a way to take that terrain away is quite nice. It also hits hard. Granted, Moth is our Terra Captain, but depending on what she Terra's into, this thing's gonna hurt. Regardless, that base 180 rock power move tends to be nice. That does mean I have to run Stone Edge on it, but that's okay. Unlike Aiden, I don't miss. Sorry guys, I gotta take the quick jab at Aiden. It's only normal. Let me shrink him. Up next, at this point, I have one bulky Montedilla Fairy, but I don't have much else. And I only have like 1.5 Montedilla Grass type cells. Still is not the best. I do have Chien-Pao. The only thing I have for psychic types though is Chien-Pao as well. So my team is kind of coming like I couldn't do a lot of psychic types. Chien-Pao's a great hard hitter, but I kind of needed a backup. and I need something for fairy and grass. So overall, that culminated in me snagging Gengar. Now, for those who don't know my history, me and this Pokemon have a very, very much so love-hate relationship. We are we're the toxic relationships you hear about online. Because I've always had bad luck with anyone that has Gengar as their mascot. From just multiple people. It's just not a good time for me. However, I can't deny the mon's good. It losing Levitate sucks so much. It still sucks so much. But I can make Curse Body work. It might stop me, oh, a mom's choice banded and spamming Earthquake. Well, Curse Body activates. I can send out my Lycan Rock and fucking kill the bitch or whatever. It hits fairies fantastically. Psychics in this thing kind of go back and forth, depending on the psychic type. Scarf, Specs, this thing has a really diverse moveset. And also just because of childhood memories, I feel like it actually would be terrible if I kind of needed it and didn't take it. Just because of some of my issues with people that use it as a mascot. So, and also, it's the shadow of Michael Fable. Like, come on now. I got it. Up next, we went down to Argue. This is our final tier of mom picks. We drafted the Z crystals after, but I already told you about what I snagged for that. So I'm going to be just kind of annoying at this point. Because Aiden roughly said, man, your team can't get any more annoying, at least after this, pretty much. I snagged Miltank. This thing has reliable recovery, can set up relatively fast, decent move pool. It gets thick fat for the ability to resist both fire and ice, which is quite nice for me. Because ice can be a problem for some people. The ice resist is nice because I have two quad super effective mons for it. One of which will come up again here a bit later, but it's another ice resist. It resists fire. I could run Scrappy if I'm running it offensive like Scarf or Band. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the last one it gets is Sap Sipper. Don't hold me to that, but I'm going to check real quick. It is Sap Sipper, which is yet another, well, that's a grass immunity versus, something like Gengar that just resists. Yeah, overall, the possibility of giving me a grand total of 2 immunities, because it's immune to Ghost. So that plus Scrappy plus Thick Fat equals annoying. One of those abilities. They're all good. So I decided to snag Miltank. I'm going to leave this here. Okay. My next pick, I noticed, because I think Miltank might get it. I'm not 100%. But I don't really have a lot of hazard removal. Defog and Rapid Spin is something I kind of lack. Hazards are super decent against my team. I can soak up toxic spikes and stuff, but it's not that great. Also, the possibility of webs for some people is scary. So I went with one of my MVP pick. Well, I say MVP. One of my favorite picks last season. Oricorio has always been at least halfway decent early game. Like early in the league. I might end up trading it away later for a better Tailwinder. But it gets Baton Pass, it gets a nice setup. I can quiver Baton Pass into my Kyogre if I need to. Or the Gengar, both of which would be great. I could Baton Pass into the Store Power Clefable strat. And with the ability to have 4 different forms of varying types minus flying, it tends to work out quite well. I'm guaranteed stab on it with Rev Dance. Hurricane slash air slash aren't the best things to run. Something else I haven't talked about a lot, because a lot of my mods do get it, is pivot. U-turn is something this thing gets, so if I need to switch, I can U-turn out, get some chip damage, and, repeat with, other mods that grab U-turn. But yeah, pretty much Tailwind and Defogger. One of the main reasons I got this, it might end up being more of a support mod this season, instead of the offensive mod I was using it last season as. But we'll see how it goes. It just depends on what I'm fighting. Okay, at this point we have 3 picks left in the draft. Everyone has their mega but me, and I should note Sammy took my mega control. That's the mega I wanted to use, she took it and you do. Which is the reason I grabbed Gengar. With that note though, I needed a bulky grass type. Because grass resists electric, which is something, and as you guys can see, I'm struggling with at this point. So I needed something to resist electric, I needed it to be bulky, and I needed it to have reliable recovery. That way I'm not relying on Clefable Wish this whole time, minus the Miltank. So I ended up snagging Dipplin. This was actually a surprise pick for everyone. No one actually thought this was getting taken. But this thing, quad resist electric, quad resist grass, quad resist water, fire is neutral. This is my second double ice weakness though. And with the Oricorio, depending on the form, that makes 3 weaknesses. But it has reliable recovery and recover itself. And Evo Light can't be knocked off this thing because it has sticky hold. So it also doesn't have the worst attack stat ever. It could be better, but it could be worse. It has base 95 special, base 80 in special defense, 110 defense, 80 HP. So it's not the worst DDL Light user either. And it gives me resists to what I need. I know after drafting in DMs, Nissa was saying I should have probably taken rather like Shaman or Bulu, Tapu Bulu. Would have been like better picks. But I had to point out to her the issues with that. Shaman would have given me a weakness to a typing that I didn't want to have a weakness to. Being fire. Or not fire. What was it? Flying? Something like that. It gave me one weakness that I didn't want. There's also the fact that Shaman's not as bulky as this thing is. And Bulu doesn't get a physical fairy move. It doesn't get one. Because for some reason the 2 offensive Tapus don't get play rough. I don't know why. So I felt like this is the better pick. Giving me something that I'm not going to regret later. And so I chose it. And again, they can't, knock off my leftover, or not leftovers, EVL Light. And with reliable recovery, if I'm not mistaken, it gets Leech Seed, decent special stat, it can hit back. The only thing is that it's slow as dog shit. But that's okay. Up next, in case you guys can't tell, I drafted a lot of my hard hitters early, and my back end is mainly walls. I kind of grabbed another bit of both, kind of with Dipplin, and Necrozma. This thing was, I was surprised I got it as late as I did. I didn't expect it to make it. Granted, I think a lot of people had Psychics at the time. No one needed it. I think I was one of the only people without one. But its ability to reduce super effective hits is fantastic. Nothing's quad super effective on it, unlike Lunala. So, it basically turns super effective hits into basic, regular hits. Gets reliable recovery. And I can still use, its signature, Photon Laser, I think is the name of it or whatever. Prismatic, something along those lines. Um, it gets a decent moveset, and Prism Armor is nice. It still gets D-Dance in this form, so if I want to run it physical, I can run it. It gets things like a Totemize. I can use this as setup. I'm actually curious. What? It gets Morning Sun and Moonlight for reliable recovery. I don't know if it gets regular recovery. No, it doesn't. So, yeah, it does have reliable recovery, though. It gets things like outrage. It's Photon Geyser. And the cool thing about it is just like Terra Blast, if it's attack higher than its special, it becomes physical. And base 100 power psychic move is fantastic. It also ignores abilities, which is nice, so that means unaware mons can't, they can't do anything. It ignores their abilities, so they don't get the resistance. As far as I understand, they don't get the ignoring of my stat boost. So if I Calm Mind twice, say, I'll still actually get that off, even if they have an unaware mon. So 2 Calm Minds into a Shadow Ball is going to hurt. Or 2 Calm Minds into a knockoff is going to hurt. Or not Calm Mind, but Swords Dances into a Calm Mind, or whatever. Any setup is just nice on this thing. It also gets sword power, so I can quiver into it and just hit infinitely hard. It gets Sword Stance, gets Substitute, gets Trick Room. Gives me a lot of options. And overall, I think this was a fantastic late game pickup. And with this mon, we have one left. And I say my mega till the end. At the end of the day, I was the last one to get a mega because Sammy took my Beedrill. And I didn't know what I want, and since I was the last one to get a mega, I didn't have to worry about anyone sniping my mega at that point. Fuck you, Sammy. Sorry about that. So I snagged. Can you show, please? Thank you. My Mecha Glalie. Pretty much the only reason I did this is so that I can click Explosion. It does get Free Strike, which is great against certain teams like Amanda's. And Refrigerate Explosion just hurts. It's a great end-all be-all, like, well, I'm dying here regardless. Decent speed stat of 100, so it wasn't a bad pickup. I won't say it'll permanently stay on the team. I will probably trade it away eventually. But for now, it was a nice pick. And yeah, that was my reasoning for this band of misfits, if you will, that you see on the right, the side of my screen. Sorry. With that was a nice little 30 minutes. I think I'm going to head out. I got a couple of things to do. I will be back with a breaking down the team I built for B-Rad for week 1. I will make that video and release it after we battle, so B-Rad can't like snipe my stuff and see what I brought. So expect that to come out soon. I have graphics for everyone's teams because I had to delete the draft video or live stream. And with that, I'm out. See y'all. Deuces.